Here, Catherine explains CBS did not want to report on legitimate stories like the use of the N-word in these text messages.
Once we got the laptop story on the morning news, I felt that there was so much there that we could still do. For example, in the text messages, there's unfortunately the use of the N-word, the liberal use of the N-word. And I thought this was worthy of a story, but I was told that it was not something that interested CBS News. Then I asked for a forensic review of the laptop, and we found that there were more than half a dozen emails that were likely used by Joe Biden. I thought that was a story. But the answer that came back was, well, we need to know what the content is of the emails. But that was going to be a years-long process.
Extraordinary. Not just the president's involvement in these emails, but the fact that these text messages had the liberal use of the N-word, she said there. That they would ignore that when they've been so obsessed with race and any sort of racial slur or any suggestion of racism, and you've got the use of the N-word and you think, oh, no one's going to be interested in that.
I mean, Rita, can you even imagine if they found text messages from Eric Trump or Don Jr. that had the N-word in them? I mean, they would talk about nothing else for a month. I mean, you just know that this is true. Yeah. And meanwhile, they smear Donald Trump and they smear the MAGA movement as racist when actually covering up actual racism on their own side. And it's so amazing because you know that they are out there scouring tapes for some indication that Donald Trump is racist, a man who obviously does not have a racist bone in his body, because they found nothing, Rita, in all of this time, while actively suppressing evidence that Joe Biden's own son uses the N-word. I mean, it's really so revealing, and I'm so glad that this reporting is out there, and I'm so glad that you are calling attention to it.
Well, is it any wonder that trust in the media is at historic lows in the US? And you can see why people are increasingly turning to the likes of Joe Rogan. The Democrats are very eager to create their own Joe Rogan, but as he explains here, they had him. He was a Democrat. Listen to this discussion between Joe Rogan and Mark Andreessen.
You pay people, it's not going to have the same impact. Yeah. You know, I think these Call Her Daddy shows and all these different shows that she went on, I mean, I'm sure they had an impact. Yeah. But I think that in the future, I'm sure they're scrambling to try to create their own version of this show. Right. This is one thing that keeps coming up, like we need our own Joe Rogan. Right. But they had me.
Well, number one, they had you. Number one, they had you. They had you and they drove you away. Is that number one? But they also have, you know, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN.
Right, but that doesn't work anymore.
They had him. He was a Democrat, like so many others now who are standing with Donald Trump, including Elon Musk and RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. Joe Rogan donated to Bernie Sanders. It was a Bernie bro, wasn't he? And to see him be red-pilled, to see him be personally attacked by the leftist media, and it's opened his eyes to how the system works. What will the Democrats have to do to counter this? Because they can go and pay podcasters, they can pay Oprah, but it just doesn't have the same impact.
The reason that you can't imagine a Joe Rogan on the left is because the thing that they want is not the thing that he is actually doing. They believe that they are smarter than everybody else and that therefore they should be able to tell the American people what to think. And then they project their fantasy onto Joe Rogan that he's literally telling people what to think, and they're following him like zombies as he tells them to vote for Donald Trump, when of course the opposite is the case. The reason Joe Rogan is so popular is because he never tells anybody what to think. He listens to this one, he listens to that one, he asks questions, and then he's like, who knows? Make up your own mind, right? That's why he's so popular, because he is a truly independent thinker. And that's why you will never have a Joe Rogan on the left, because, Rita, they are incapable of independent thought, which is why the American people have totally turned on them.
Well, it's becoming like Islamism. As someone who escaped an Islamist country, it's total submission. You either submit to what we think on every issue, or you're on the outer. You start getting attacked, and that's what happened with Rogan. I want to ask you about Special Counsel Jack Smith. He's dropped the January 6th and classified document cases against Donald Trump. We spoke about that yesterday. But we cannot get past the manner in which he weaponised the Department of Justice. He wasn't alone, but let's not forget he tried to bypass lower court rulings. He tried desperately to manipulate the process so the trial could be before the election. Is there going to be any accountability for Jack Smith and others like him?
You know, there are competing impulses here, Rita. On the one hand, Donald Trump has been very clear that he does not intend to persecute his political opposition or to wreak revenge. He's not interested in that. On the other hand, he has said repeatedly, they're not coming after me because of me. They're coming after me because they're coming after you, the American people. I'm just standing in the way. And I think it's very important to him to make sure that this can't happen to any other Americans who don't have his resources. And so I think that's the fine line that you're going to see Pam Bondi and others trying to walk here, which is to somehow bring justice back to justice, to somehow de-weaponize the justice system, but not to then re-weaponize it as a revenge tactic. So there were real abuses of the law, which deserve to be, you know, we need accountability there, but I think it's going to be done in a very delicate, balanced way, or I hope so.
Absolutely. But as you said, the key word there was accountability. Those who have abused their power, abused their offices, need to face accountability. Otherwise, there is no reason for this not to happen again. And I think it's just that sense of justice that needs to prevail here. Batya, Ungar-Sargon, always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Rita. God bless. See you soon.